pinned on my lovely gold shiny piece. It's going to go along, sort of along the edge of the mountain and then onto whatever this foreground is being. And the nice thing is, because I've used a shiny sort of goldy coloured thread, I'm just going to use the same thread for this bit as well. I mean, I may add some more gold stitching onto the whole thing later on, but we're just doing it layer by layer, simple layer by layer, getting everything down onto the surface, and then we see where that takes us, yeah? What I like about this fabric is it is quite sort of pleated already. It's got a sort of a texture to it already, which I really appreciate that against the smoothness of this fabric here. Okay, so now we've got the mountains pinned on, and I'm just going to do some simple stitching on here. I've got a nice lovely dark brown thread. I seem to be drawn to shiny threads somehow, so I'm using another shiny thread. I think it's all this talk of moonlight is going to my head. So let's just get this going. I'm just going to go along the top edge of the mountain range, so we'll get that held in place. And then at the end I'm turning around, and what I'm going to do is I like to do another stitching line where it comes off the mountain range and into the sky. And I don't know why I like doing that, I just do. It's sort of, somehow it defines the mountain rather than you looking at the rough edge. You get this sort of edge of the stitching instead to look at. And it doesn't matter if it waggles, it doesn't have to be absolutely on it. Oops, the edges there coming out. There you go, that makes me happy. Yeah. It's almost like it takes the eye beyond the mountain, so your eye can travel from the mountain and into the sky. So now all I'm going to do is I just do some sort of wiggly waggly stitching how I feel, okay? This is just how I feel about this mountain range. I tend to try and break it up so you don't feel it goes right the way across. It kind of got bits of, you know, you get valleys and you get little addy bits on, and you know. Main thing is to get my edges tucked under at this side. Take the pin out again. If I do leave my pins in, I do make sure I stitch very, very carefully and slowly. I think for me this is the fun bit. Because you can just put a bit of personality onto the mountain. You can actually start to feel that it's a mountain. And the other thing I've got to be a little bit careful of is if I get down here, not to push the fabric so that it all balloons out up here. So you've got to just, you know, take your time, fiddle about. You know, stop and look at it. Say, oh, do I like that? You know, do I want more of that? Do I wish I'd done less of that? Get that pin out. especially when you're stitching shiny fabric and you are stitching onto wadding, you're going to get very defined shapes doing this. If you don't quite like what you've done, you know, you can stitch over the top, or you can add something over the top, because I'm going to actually have a piece of fabric going over here as well. But I'm pretending at the moment I'm just leaving this as raw, just to make sure it all gets stitched. Okay, so that's all my stitching finished. I'll just show you the back. You can see I've collected odd little bits of other things while I've been sewing. That's always the way. At least they're on the back and not the front. But you can see what I was doing with the mountain much more clearly there, can't you? Just doing little lines as though you were drawing. Imagine you were drawing a mountain and you're looking at all the little valleys and the little bits that stand up, and some bits are disappearing, and then it gets a bit more complicated down here, obviously, because I've got the second piece of fabric on there, which you can see the moon quite clearly. So I rather like that. It's like a little sketch on the back. I'll just turn it back over, and you can see I've kept it really very simple. The same 5 pieces of fabric and the little moon. Now this fabric that I use for the moon, which is this stuff down here, is horrible stuff to work with in a way. It tends to go very square if you're not careful, so I kind of stitched the circle as best I could, and then I've trimmed round a little bit, and I stitched it with 2 lines to make sure that it does actually stay there, because there is a risk that this stuff kind of sheds. Even as you're stitching it, it's shedding and trying to unravel itself, but it makes a very nice moon, I thought. So I'm quite pleased with that. I love the way the light is reflecting from all of the surface, and the sky is a bit of a contrast. As I say, I made a bit of a blooper, so perhaps the sky isn't as perfect as it could have been. I don't really like that ruckly bit there, but you know, it's learning. It's a learning curve. It's, you know, reminding myself that I really must put some stabilizer on before I start stitching. Haha. So that's the end of the making for this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm certainly pleased with what I've done here, despite the ruckly bits. I'm pleased with the process and the journey that it's taken me on, and the exploration. I've used all very shiny fabrics, which I don't normally do. I've done lots of things that are different in this, I would say, and keeping it simple has been really the key to it, I think. And then working out what I'm going to put I think it's going to be over on this side, and I think I know what it might be, but if you've got any suggestions, please do leave them down below. I love to get your comments, I love to get your feedback. If you're inspired by anything that I say or do, I'm just delighted. I've had 1 or 2 people say they've been nudged to finish things off. You know, something I've said has just given them a bit of inspiration, and they've gone off to finish things which they had started, or you maybe even go on and you start something fresh yourself, and you know, take it in your direction. It'll always be what you do. It won't be the same as what I do, but it's inspired by anything I do. That's great. I really love it, and it's great that you're here. I love getting your comments, as I say. The feedback is just brilliant. It makes me feel, you know, really like I'm connecting with real people, which is fantastic. I was very pleased to be able to use some of these fabrics. I used a very simple collection of fabrics. I mean, 5 different fabrics was just plenty for this piece. And this one is just my favourite. It really is. You can see it was once upon a time, you know, a nice little blouse. But again, it's come from a charity shop, and I think that's really cool. So you get free buttons with it. It's a shirt, so you get free buttons with it. I know 1 or 2 people have said they go to charity shops as well. For me, it's a way of, you know, donating something. It's giving a donation to the charity, because I'm taking away something which may end up in their rag bag. Ultimately, you don't know. They're unloved and unwanted pieces of clothing. Some people get real bargains. There's occasionally, I know there's a sale reel occasionally that I can take advantage of, and 1 or 2 people have said that's what they're able to do in their charity shops. It just depends, you know, what's on offer. But I never mind paying what I pay, because, as I say, I think it's a donation. And buying the fabric itself around here would be impossible. I'd have to go online, and that would mean endless hunting for things. Whereas in a charity shop, it's brilliant, because there's all these different kinds of things just there on a rail waiting for you to go pick them up. And the ladies in the shop never know what I'm going to be doing with them. I don't say I'm taking it home to chop it up and massacre it, turn it into a piece of art. And I think it's upcycling. You know, how does it get any better than that? So the other thing I was going to talk about was, let me just move that out of the way a little bit. Stick that over there. No, stick it over there, right out of the way. My table's cluttered again as usual, despite my big tidy up. So I was going to talk about, a couple of people have asked me how I do the back and how I glue it and what I glue with. So I actually just use PVA glue because that's all I've got in, and it's an old bottle. I've had it for donkey's years, and I'm very careful cleaning my brush and stuff so I don't put too much down the sink when I've finished, because I know it's not a great glue to use from that point of view, from the environmental point of view. But I've yet to find, I did seek out when I started first gluing things like this onto a board, I did try and seek out whether there was like a special one for embroiderers to use or something, but there didn't seem to be anything on the market. So I am still looking for something more eco-friendly, but in the meantime I use PVA, and what I do is I glue the back, I put a thin layer on the back, and very carefully so that nothing goes through. I always make sure that there's something on the back, enough on the back to stop it, you know, instantly going through to the front. This papery stuff, this tear away stabiliser is quite good. And then I put another layer onto the board as well. So they've got two layers. I let them go a little bit dry. You've got to just sit around and wait for them, have a cup of tea, and let them go a little bit tacky. And then I put the two surfaces together, and I very carefully do that so that again it's quite a gentle process. And I don't do it very often these days. More and more I'm stitching these pieces onto a board, onto a mount board with some big stitching. So I'm very careful about how I stitch it. I just use little tiny stitches where I've already got some stitching, but you can do quite big gaps on the back. You know, it doesn't have to be held with minute stitches all the way, because they're quite light, these, as long as it's got enough to hold it on in place. So that's what I do more and more, and I will show you, actually, here's one I made earlier. This one's an oldish piece, again, funnily enough, it's got a moon on it, or it might be a sun, I don't know, who knows. It's imaginative, but this is on a board. As I say, it's just a board that my husband, bless him, cut these for me, and then I just put a little hooky thing on the back, a little loop to hang, and you have to put that on before you glue your thing on the front, because you don't want to be starting to, you know, screw things on the back when you've got your nice picture on the front. And then I just glue it on and it's ready to hang. And this has been on here quite a number of years. I can't even think how many years it's been on there, and it's absolutely fine. So you can take them off, obviously, if you know, if you get fed up with this picture being on here. You can even recycle that and take your picture off if you don't like it anymore and put something else on there. So as I say, that's about it for this week. Chat to me in the comments if you'd like to say hello to me, that would be lovely. And otherwise I will just see you next week. Yes, I will see you in my studio next week. I will. I'm off to do a talk on Monday, but I'm going to make sure I've got all my filming ready for you for next Wednesday. I'm off to do a talk to an embroiderers group in Northumberland. Hello Hexham, if anybody's out there from Hexham, hello. I will be coming to talk to you next week, which is really exciting. So it's my first talk for quite a number of years, obviously, with certain things going on around the world. So I'm really looking forward to that, being there in person with my big boxes of fabrics and stuff that I'm going to be showing them. So that's exciting for next week, but there will be a film on Wednesday because I'm going to be super organised and make sure it all happens. And anyway, I want to get this done. I want to know what's going to happen to it, hey? So I will see you all very soon. Bye for now.